So it's a very warm welcome to the Humanity podcast today to Mr. Mike Sutton. Mike, how are you?
G'day, mate. I'm really well. How are you?
Yeah, always doing well. And we were just talking off air about the wonderful part of the world that you live in. Can you share with all my listeners where you're actually based at the moment?
Yeah, sure, mate. Well, I'm in a beautiful little village called Point Lonsdale in Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
We're right on the coast, and when you come in, you should know this, mate, being a sailor, when you sail into Victoria, in through the heads, you have Queenscliff on one side where they had all the old forts that protected in the old days from attacks. On the other side, you have the Sorrento side. We're on the Queenscliff side. So very close to the Great Ocean Road. A lot of your listeners would be familiar with that. It's a bit of a worldwide attraction, and the 12 Apostles and that beautiful drive down the coast. So, yeah, right at the top of that.
Okay, brilliant. Now, for all those listeners and viewers around the world, because we're going to over 110 countries today, Mike, and a lot of them won't know Victoria is Melbourne, Australia. So in Australia, we're talking about, folks, not Victoria in Canada, and or Victoria in Africa as well. So it's definitely Australia. And those places that Mike is alluding to are down close to Melbourne. Many of you would have been to Melbourne or heard of Melbourne, and you might be booking a ticket to go there after we can all travel again. So get on and check out Mike's part of the world, because it is a beautiful part of the world. Mate, I haven't had a chance to sail in through those heads yet on the boat, so it's something I'll save for a rainy day, I guess.
Yeah, well, you should definitely head over, mate. And when you come in, just take a left into Queenscliff Marina, and I'll come and buy you lunch.
Oh, there you go. Everybody heard that. So that's on the record there, on the record. Now, tell us, Mike, what's been happening down your way as far as COVID-19 goes? It's put a lot of, question marks in a lot of people's lives. So how's it been affecting you down that way?
Sorry, Mark, I'm just losing you a little bit.
Yeah, okay, I'm having the same problem. So, Mike, I was going to ask you, I'd like you to dedicate your podcast show today to someone special in your life. Have you got someone you'd like to dedicate the show to?
Oh, geez, mate, that's now you're going to make me choose. Look, I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and I know that the kids are particularly really feeling it. I've got 3 at home that have been not at school and locked in, their bedrooms and not playing sport. And my 2 sons are superstars, but I'm going to dedicate this to my little soon-to-be 9-year-old daughter, little Farah.
Farah, fantastic. What a lovely dedication from Dad. So what's Farah doing today? Is she out playing, or what is she up to?
Holidays, so she's just been knocking on the door to my office out the back to come in and sit in on the podcast. But she's inside driving Mum crazy because it's raining here, of course, in Melbourne, Victoria. So, yeah.
So how's it been with COVID? I talked to a lot of people across the world, and everybody is experiencing this in a different way, because it might be a global pandemic, but because of restrictions in certain countries and cities and everything, everybody's having to deal with it in a different way. How's it going for you?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, and it's obviously really relevant and current. It's a massive, really. I suppose I can answer it in the way that we've been a little bit fortunate. People wouldn't know, but regional Victoria that I'm part of, not Metro Melbourne, has had slightly less restrictions in the last 3 months, but Melbourne Metro has had the toughest of any country or any city in the world. Basically house arrest for nearly 12 weeks.
Wow.
But even in our community, I think the impact is it's like throwing an iron blanket, over people, where it's not only that eat, sleep, repeat, day in, day out the same. You can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. And, as we know, that when you have hope and the desires for new things and exciting things, even if they're little things day by day, gets your spirits up and you get excited. None of that excitement is there. And I just see people walking around like zombies, and it's I think I run a community sports club in my area, and the impact on the 350 kids not being able to play sport and what that's doing to people is enormous. And I could go on and on and on, because there's lots of other things going on around that, but it's been in that sense, disastrous, really.
Mm. Have you got friends in Melbourne City that have been talking to you about this and how it's affecting them?
Yeah, many, and family. My sister's a nurse in a COVID ward in Melbourne on the front line.
Mm.
So things like her sons who are in their 20s, early 20s, can't go to work at their work. They've still got a little bit of work if they're living at home with her or visiting her. I've got, my in-laws are all there, and lots of friends in business and other things that are just, some have nice houses and they can, and a bit of land where they live, and they at least got that. Others that are in apartments, and you're only allowed out for an hour a day, or for the three main reasons that you're allowed out for. And everyone's sick of saying I'm depressed or I'm feeling down or blue or whatever. They're trying to say, look, we're nearly there. What else can we do? But it's terrible. They're really, really struggling.
Mm. For those listening around and watching from around the world today, there is good news, though, I believe, coming out of Victoria, where the number of cases has reduced, Mike, and there seems to be that glimmer of hope on the horizon. Is it fair to say that there's going to be a releasing of the restrictions in the coming days?
Yeah, look, I hope so, Mark. In regional Victoria, so we've had it staged in sort of the CBD metro area plus a small regional area, then the rest of Victoria, which is quite a large land mass and a lot of, reasonably big towns. And we, regional Victoria, a week and a half ago, got released from a lot of our restrictions. We still all have to wear masks in Victoria legally.
Right.
And so we've had a slight release in here, which has been brilliant in terms of local, travel and accommodation and hotels and restaurants and cafes, at least being able to open up with restrictions, but open. And that's been made a palpable difference where I live, seeing those people I know open the doors. And in Victoria, in Melbourne itself, that they haven't, but we do hope that our auspicious leader is going to make an announcement on the weekend, which should hopefully pare that back a bit.
Okay, good. So, you're a positive guy. I've watched some of the content you've put online. You see the glass half full most of the time. So how have you been looking at this in terms of, you're a father, you're a business guy. How have you put it all into context of, looking at life now?
Yeah, I can't lie because I try not to anyway, but it hasn't been easy. And you're right, I'm a very positive, optimistic person at all times, most times. In the beginning, it was probably quite difficult when it sort of sunk in, how devastating this lockdown and the cut-off from connection and community was going to be. It was quite hard to get your mind around what do I do, and I've got a funny little anecdote about that. I was lying in my bath at about 4 a.m. one morning, flicking through LinkedIn looking for some inspiration and seeing how some other people were sort of coping. And there's a guy I know in Sydney, actually runs quite a successful business called Graham Holm, and he had just put a post up, and several people, really high up people like Tony Robbins and these guys who he's connected in were commenting. I thought, well, that's interesting. What's he saying? And he had developed this, a meme or a post tile, and he'd said, COVID does not have permission to F with my mission. And then he had a bit of a spiel about how he was going to pivot and how he was going to innovate and how he was going to drag people with him. And I was lying in the bath and I sent him a message, and I said, Graham, I don't really know that well, mate, but I bloody love that attitude. I'd love to catch up for a chat and, get some of that into my thinking so we can do something. And he said, that's awesome. That's the best thing I've ever heard. So, right. We started this connection and sort of really started a little mini side podcast for the first lockdown called Think Outside the Box or Outside the Box. And we just sort of did 10, 15 minutes with people in all different industries. How are you changing? What sort of ideas can you throw out to the business world in that sense of, if you're stuck, you had to close your doors, what can you do? If you're a cafe, how quickly can you deliver or do takeaway? If you're whatever, if you're a hairdresser, are you allowed to do mobile haircuts, or can you meet on the street and do your neighbours? All these things came out. And that really got me fired up, morphed into a lot of other things. But it was amazing the connections the broader community made around the positivity of that.
Yeah.
And that's probably what got me through at the start. There's been some, I've been in some dark rabbit holes between now and then, like everyone, I would suggest. But yeah, fortunately for me, I've, at nearly 50, I've seen a lot of things in the world, and I've got a pretty high resilience factor. So,
are you somebody that has done a lot of travel in recent times? Been off around different parts of the world?
Yeah, certainly, mate. I've always travelled since I was born in South Africa. Actually, born in Johannesburg.
Yep.
I've already said I'm nearly 50, so I can't lie about my age. But
right.
So since I was 18, I've really been travelling a lot. Recently, a lot for business, and around Australia mostly, but some OS stuff. And yeah, that's been really tough because it's kind of, it did take the wind out of the sails on how you then pivot or change to Zoom meetings and phone calls instead of, as you are no doubt a people person as well. It's really hard to have that same impact and get that same feeling about what's really going on if you're not there. So that's been really tough.
Yeah. What do you do for a business?
Yeah. Oh, mate, I've got I don't know where you want to start on that one, but I've got a couple of yeah, good one. Got a couple of things that I'm just mucking around with. No, I've got a digital media business with a great partner in that, where we've actually developed a digital signboard for real estate, actually, to replace the traditional signboards, the static boards, the for sale boards.
Yep.
It's got packed with a whole lot of incredible features and what it can do, and that's kind of morphed into more of a digital media business around that sign.
Right.
Particularly now with contact tracing and what's required for COVID and messaging, that's really become a thing for like sporting clubs, stadiums, hotels, cafes, and that sort of stuff. I own a basketball team in Auckland.
Okay.
It's the New Zealand NBL called the Auckland Huskies.
Right.
I
Okay.
own that.
Cool. How did that come about? Let's talk about that. I'm interested in that. I'm an old sports guy. I'm a Kiwi, so tell us about how you end up buying a New Zealand basketball team when you're sitting in Victoria, Australia.
Well, it's an interesting story. We didn't actually buy it. We founded a team 2 years ago, actually, in Tasmania.
Right.
And for the last 20 odd years, Tasmania hasn't had an NBL team in the Australian NBL National Basketball League, a small equivalent of the NBA if you're from America, and that's the state itself has missed out on, hasn't really had any national sporting teams in the mainland competition. So my business partner's from Tasmania, and we set out to create a team in Tasmania to gain entry into the National Basketball League in Australia called the Southern Huskies. So it's reasonably difficult to just rock up to the NBL and say, hey, here we are, we want to be in your league, right? You can't sort of do that unless you anyway, so we talk about pivot and innovate. Someone said, one of our contacts said, you should go and talk to the guys in New Zealand. Go and talk to the board of the NBL over there.
Yeah.
So we had all of our, pitch decks and presentations, everything done, the branding, the team selected almost, coaches, everything. So we went over to Auckland one fateful day, had a 1 hour meeting with the New Zealand board, and who pretty much said, look, this is brilliant. What a great opportunity. There's never been an Australian professional team that actually takes part in a New Zealand professional competition.
Right.
So we really see a lot of upside here.
Yeah.
Pretty much on the day said, look, given these sort of whatever parameters, this is a goer. We'd definitely love to take this further.
Yeah.
So we then went and celebrated with about a 15-hour lunch, which was probably the worst thing we could have done. Anyway, as you do. And so long story short, we ended up playing in last year, in 2019, as the Southern Huskies, based in Tasmania, in the New Zealand NBL.
Right.
And there was a lot of, we actually were responsible for bringing all the teams backwards and forwards, and it was a really massive exercise and project. And Anyway, the basketball side went okay. We had a pretty good team, a few injuries at the end, and we just missed the finals, but it was a great experience. And there was a lot of stuff sort of happening in the basketball landscape last year and in this country. And we had sort of said, look, we're going to put a hold on the Australian aspect. It's just too much on our plate to be responsible for all the teams. So the New Zealand board came to us actually and said, because their season wasn't going to go ahead like everyone's with COVID, but they were able to come out of lockdown and create this bubble in Auckland.
Yep, right.
We'd get a short 6-week or 8-week season going. So they came to us and said, look, we're going to do this. Would you be interested in relocating your franchise to be the Auckland Huskies? Right. And then you've still got your license is current. You can just pick up your branding and go again in Auckland if you would like. And, it took us about 7 minutes to decide.
Yeah.
So that's how we became the Auckland Huskies and played in that competition that's just recently finished. And, and we're really looking forward to that. We've got a great young general manager in Auckland. We've got we're developing a board over there, and we've got one of New Zealand's favourite basketball sons in Dylan Boucher, who's on our first board member, if you like, a senior advisor. So we're really developing it as a local business where we're going to set out, we are setting out now, a whole connection to community about, delivering programs into different youth group ages where we can give an elite pathway and reach out to also the lower docile areas as well. So,
yeah. What a fantastic story. I have so much to comment on around that story that you've just shared with us, Mike, so thanks for sharing it with us. First of all, I've got to applaud my fellow countrymen because they make decisions quickly, they make things happen, and there you were in Auckland for one meeting and bang, you were on board, right? So what a fantastic story to hear of that. And it's innovative as well, right? It's something new. It's a different approach. And also, when you started off as the Southern Huskies, you had no idea that it was going to morph into the Auckland Huskies and the evolution of that. And it just shows. And here's a story of hope for people out there. When you start something, you never know where the opportunities are going to come, and you never know when the new doors are going to open. So there's a great story to hear from Mike about how that basketball journey has unfolded. What's the connection to basketball? Are you an ex-basketball player or current basketball player?
No, I'm not a current basketball player. I like a lot of kids, I played a lot of sports and played basketball a lot. But my business partner in this played in the NBL for the last Tasmanian team, the Hobart, Tassie Devils. Sorry.
Yep.
Back in the day, and he was one of the youngest kids to come through an elite pathway in Australia and play in that. So that's really the tie-in. With basketball in the sense of why that sport. Personally, I'm a football man in football.
Okay.
So,
yep.
But, I love sport. I love the community. I love seeing people engage. And really, for me, the game night experience and, talking to kids come along. And we did this awesome thing last year where we ran a competition on the local radio to give a mother and a child, a limo ride to the game and come and meet the players and have free food and all that sort of stuff. And it was one of the best moments of the whole year. So that's what I love about it.
I want to make a prediction online here, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. I reckon you're going to end up living in New Zealand in the next 5 years, mate.
It's not so funny, mate. It's not so funny. I mean, I love Auckland, and my wife said, "Oh, this relocation, does this mean we're buying an apartment on the waterfront in, probably one day."
There you go. So I can see the crystal ball. You're going to buy a nice yacht to be able to sail on Auckland Harbour and get out there and enjoy the America's Cup's happening next year, right? So you better hurry up.
Yeah, mate, I agree. What you said, I'm down with that.
Now, the Australian Wallabies rugby team's looking for a new sponsor, I hear, today. So you're going to step up and take that on as well, Mike, or what? A South African in charge of sponsorship for the Australian Wallabies. That'll be a good one.
No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone's going to fill the Qantas shoes. One, I don't know. That's a tough.
That's a big hurt for them, isn't it? That one.
Yeah. That.
You can understand it though.
Sorry, mate, just lost you for a second.
Yeah, no, I was saying that's a big hurt, isn't it, for the Australian rugby team to lose their big, 30-year sponsorship deal. That's a long time. You become family after that time, don't you?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, look, coming back to the whole question around how much has COVID hurt or what has it done? I mean, you can't tell me that with no airline travel, Qantas are obviously scrambling to survive and save their future. But at the same time, so is professional sport. So it's going to make it's extremely tough landscape. I don't know how they're going to get out of it, but I'm sure they'll find a way. But yeah, I mean, all sports in Australia, from the FFA, to tennis to cricket, they're all struggling.
Well, I think we've talked so far in the show about a lot of the struggles associated with it, but I think there's also a lot of opportunity. And whenever I've often said on the show over the last few months that it's a reset button's being pushed, isn't it, for us all globally? And whether that be in our personal lives or whether it be in our business lives, we've got an opportunity now to sit down, take a breath, because it's being forced upon us to take a breath and slow down and actually have a look at how we're doing things. And I think it's a great opportunity for sport all over the world to reinvent itself in all sorts of new ways that perhaps they wanted to do, or they are halfway through doing it. I know that, I'm close to global men's tennis, and I've seen a lot of the things that are coming down the channel there for the new ways of reinventing the tennis circuit around the world, which is going to make it a lot better for players as well as for spectators. So, yeah, where do you sit on that? Do you see it as a great opportunity for a lot of these sports to reinvent themselves?
Yeah, look, I think so. I mean, I don't think so. I reckon I know so. Just in general, the blessing in disguise here is the fact that, the gold really comes in the quiet spaces. When we create space to allow the creativity and allow some magic to happen, that's often where it is. And okay, no one wanted this. It's here, so we have to get on with it and deal with it the best we can. And I think the forced nature of the restrictions has forced, really driven people into being creative where they otherwise may have not been. And I can give you an example about what the New Zealand board did and the general manager, Justin Nelson, and his team did of the New Zealand League over there. And what they created was, world leading. And this is from a little country in New Zealand, but big in sport. And they were able to pull together in 6 weeks a whole competition with all teams staying in one hotel in Auckland, playing at one location, with a broadcast deal with with Sky Sports in New Zealand, with a sideways deal into ESPN into America, obviously to 250 million basketball fans. They had a they had a global broadcasting pay-per-view deal, actually through my business. Shouldn't say that. One of my businesses. But it gave people the opportunity for $9 or $5 anywhere in the world to choose what game they wanted to watch, and that's revolutionary.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's no doubt saved basketball in New Zealand and given it a lot of impetus, because they were the world leaders in that. So, I mean, there's a prime example of what it's been able to do.
Have we seen other countries adopting similar approaches now that you're aware of?
Yeah, look, I think so. I mean, obviously, I follow as I mentioned, I follow the football a lot, and the Premier League and the Champions League in Europe and those sort of things. And I think, even being able to find a way to get back and keep playing and empty stadiums and what they've been able to do to create atmosphere and no doubt they're pivoting and innovating with their sponsors and how they can keep a commercial partnership and activations going, which is not easy when a lot of activations are game day, as you would know, and, corporates and where you get your value. So I think definitely anywhere where it's going and it's picked up again, they've been innovative and creative.
What's your favourite Premier League team? Who do you follow?
Oh, that's a nasty question, Mark. Only because my team won back-to-back leagues, and or they should have won back-to-back leagues a long time ago now, and that's Arsenal.
Arsenal, ooh. Yeah. You've been through some pain, haven't you?
Yeah, it's funny. I was sitting in a black cab in 2002, just after they'd won, and in London, and the cabbie said to me, who do you follow? Arsenal. Oh, yeah, yes, his team. And he said, what do you reckon? We can do it again next year. And at that time, no, we were going to win 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
And the last words I said about that was, yeah, mate, of course we are. Why not? and then we haven't won again since. So.
I'll tell you what, I used to live in Europe for over a decade, and I had the very great privilege, actually, once of having lunch with Arsene Wenger, and he's a very intelligent man. He's a very nice man, first of all, and he's also a very intelligent man, and no matter what people think, and I'd like to hear your views on Arsene Wenger as far as Arsenal goes, but he'd left a legacy there at that club, didn't he?
Oh, you talk about the word innovate and big thinker and forward thinker. Alex Ferguson, obviously probably the greatest manager that's ever been in football. But you look at what Arsene did he revolutionised the game worldwide. And he did that, came from Japan. He was running, a big club in Japan, but a small club compared to Arsenal. Went to Arsenal and changed everything, changed the way the players ate, changed the cafeteria, changed their sleeping habits, changed all the coaches and changed everything, right? Flipped it all on its head and said, this is how we're going to be an elite club, an elite atmosphere, an elite environment. And I can remember listening to players like the Ray Parlers and the Tony Adams and these guys who were drinking pints, day before game day. Going, what the hell is this, how's this going to affect us? And, of course, it did. And, he not only changed Arsenal, he changed every major professional football club.
Yeah. I'm sure you're a proponent of what I'm about to say. I think that there's so much to learn from all these amazing sports coaches around the world. You look at someone like Steve Hansen in New Zealand, what they did with the All Blacks, and that's been a legacy for a long time. But there's so much to be learnt from these people as far as leadership, management, skill sets, tactics, all these things that we can apply to our everyday life, to our business life. It's something I've always wanted to write a book about it, actually, and just go around the world and interview some of these amazing sports coaches and leaders. What's your view on that? Do you agree with that comment?
Yeah, look, first of all, I'd say, the poster behind your wall says dream big, and I think you've just created a dream that's a big one for yourself, and you should definitely do that. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think it's so true, you sort of don't think of sports coaches as man managers. You think of them, or I should say people managers. You think of them more as X's and O's type of people, strategy guys, strategy people. That's only a tiny part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched that Tottenham Hotspurs documentary that's out at the moment on Amazon, with really featuring when Jose Mourinho's come in and taken over from Poch.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
And obviously they're not showing the real deep strategy stuff, strategy work that they do.
Yeah.
But 90% of it is him connecting with people, is him giving people the dream on how to be the best version of themselves they can be, and managing that person to get the most out of them, for his sake, of course, but for their own sake as well. And I think you see the best coaches around the world, that's the point of difference between someone that's a brilliant strategist and someone that can manage people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think if we look at, I really dislike this word mentor that's thrown around in the business world, because everybody thinks they're a mentor, and, I won't go into it in too much detail, but I think you get my drift on it. But if you look at people like this, and what I was blown away with when I met Arsene Wenger, because I had no idea about the man until I met him and had a chat, and what really struck me was his level of detail in everything, every aspect of what he was involved in, and he kind of lived a microcosmic lifestyle of drilling down to, he knew every player's birthday, he knew their wife, their girlfriend, all those details. He was immersed in their life to be able to relate to them, to make them feel good, to understand their troubles, their woes, and whatever that was going to have a performance effect on their performance on the pitch, right? And that's the level of detail that these guys go to, and ladies go to as well.
Yeah. And I think, people often wonder, that team won because they bought this player, or that team won because they got more money or bigger sponsors or whatever. I mean, you only have to look at Leicester a couple of years ago. The most underfunded champion Premier League winners almost in history.
Yep.
And they often ask, how the hell did they do it? And it was simply the chemistry that their manager and their staff and everyone bought into for that year.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is you can take a coach out of one of those teams and put him in another team, and it completely doesn't work. And it
Correct.
can be all about that culture of that particular place and time. And Mourinho is a good example, right? Because,
Yeah.
he bounces around from club to club now and perhaps hasn't found a sweet spot again. So that's really interesting. Let's bring it back to you, though, in terms of pivoting in your business. How's COVID made you pivot more in your other business activities? You've talked about the basketball stuff, but what impact has it had on other things that you're doing?
Yeah, look, it's had a big impact, and it's made us kind of take stock of where the opportunities are. I think a lot of people are waiting for the world to go back to its normal state, and I just don't believe that's ever going to happen. Then I think there'll be, there'll be portions of life, normal life, that come back.
Yep.
But I think something this big has probably changed the psyche in some base things forever. It's certainly changed the business opportunities. And I was on a call before, and this company had their own little live meeting, for example, like a mini Zoom that they developed in-house for themselves.
Right.
In this time frame, they've now taken that and commercialised it on a global scale.
Right.
I thought they were never going to do that. It wasn't even on their plans,
Yeah.
So you look at that and you think, there are some massive opportunities out there.
Yeah.
And what we've done, one of the main ones we've done is, or developed in this, actually was the first day of lockdown in Melbourne. We went and met our new business partners. We weren't even partners yet, in the back of a little pub in a suburb in Melbourne that they own.
Yeah, right.
And sat around with the doors closed, making sure people weren't seeing that we'd gone to a meeting. And that never happened, by the way. And and hashed out this plan to develop this digital video-based online learning platform. At the time, we named it. It was called Train by Miyagi.
Right.
So it was obviously the older people like us, mate, would be familiar with the Karate Kid.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so the concept was, of course, anyone who's got a skill to teach in anything from cooking to sport to education to business to whatever, can go on and upload their own videos, be organic or professionally filmed, to put it into module form and then sell them, right?
Yep.
And so that was something that was out there already, but then so the education online digital space is not new, and there are obviously some huge companies doing it. We had a different take on it and started down that path, developing it and getting some pretty cool, good people on board to sell their content. And at that time, the New Zealand board of basketball came to us and said, you want to do the rebrand thing, come back into Auckland, and what's going on? How are you coping with COVID? All that stuff. Yeah. So we told them, look, maybe we should do a crossover and get some of your coaches and basketballers to also, do a New Zealand online learning thing about basketball.
Right.
And it came out in conversation about, through your platform, could you live stream sport? So we just said off the cuff, yeah, of course we can. They said, great. How would you like to live stream all of the games this coming season?
Oh,
okay, sounds great. We then hung up the phone and said, holy shit, what are we going to do now? So we went away and made it happen, and that was an opportunity that came out of nothing, which came out of someone being creative and innovative and disruptive in Justin and the guys in the league.
Yeah.
And so we quickly built, with our developers, we quickly built the functionality to be able to take on live stream feeds. We already had a ticketing system. We turned it into a digital ticketing system, and we're able to take pay-per-view content and sold it into 25, 26 countries around the world. So
fantastic.
That was really brilliant. So then what we've done now, taking it one step further, is rebranded that to Miyagi Live or Miyagi.live. And we're now all things broadcast and discover. So
okay.
One of the points of difference there is you can choose to monetize or give away.
Yep.
So a slightly different to other platforms that are out there.
Yep.
But we're really just focused on where we see that going and what we want to do with that around channels and different market segments and, building out a massive global database of users and uploaders.
Okay, brilliant. So for people that are listening and watching in today, I'm going to be putting all the links to Mike's activities in the show notes so you can connect and check it out. So Mike, how long from conceptual idea to implementation did that project take you?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll go back one step if that's all right. We have another business in real estate technology, and that's why I alluded to the digital media signs and that business in real estate. And I'd actually been doing a lot with this guy called Adam Flynn around some media stuff and some videos, and he's one of Australia's or Melbourne's top real estate agents. And I was in the car with my business partner talking about doing an online learning platform with Adam. And so we floated it past him. We said, come over to my pub and we'll meet. And that space was like 1 week, right? I said, right, we'll go flesh it out on a piece of paper. And so literally when we got there and we sat down, Adam said, I want to hear your idea in the full, but I've got another idea. Mm-hmm. And his idea was an app where you could go up and upload your things that you want to teach. Mm-hmm. So we said, right, why don't we combine the two and turn it into a proper global platform? And, really it started with about 4 or 5 ideas I don't know when the first lockdown started, around March.
Yep.
Yeah, so really between March and September, it's morphed from, a piece of paper in the back of a pub to a fully scaled, working, functioning global platform.
Fantastic stuff. And the theme is there, I'm listening to you very carefully as you're talking about all these different business meetings you're having. Get out to a pub, people, and meet in a pub and share your business ideas.
Yeah, damn straight, mate. Damn straight. Never a truer word spoken, and great advice. So, and, I think, look, I take it one step further. I think it's our responsibility as good citizens of the world to support all the cafe and pub owners who've had to shut down.
Oh, that's a great way of saying it.
As they open up, we get straight back out there and, part with some hard earned to help them out.
And also, there's nothing like a bit of Dutch courage either after you've had a couple and coming up with business ideas and putting those forward as well. You sign yourself into partnerships you never thought you'd be in a pub, wouldn't you, Mike?
100%. And I mean, there's the world's best example of this exact thing, and that's Richard Branson.
Yeah,
exactly. There's a famous story of the Virgin logo was at the back of a beer coaster in a pub in London. So,
did you know that he lived on a houseboat when he started Virgin?
I did, yeah, I did know that. Much like yourself, mate.
All great things start on a boat, mate. I'll tell you that. All great things start on a boat. So that's a wonderful story, and I really want to thank you for sharing it, because a lot of people out there who are struggling, have trouble, and I'm going to ask for your advice and a few tips on this, because people who are thinking, you're a business guy, you know what you're doing and how to turn these things on, but other people struggle with taking it from conceptual idea into implementation and making something happen. So what are your tips around that for people listening in today?
Look, I think there's lots of things that I don't know. There's lots of things that everyone doesn't know, right, in whatever field it is. And for me, what I've learned I've learned how to do those things over a lot of years, but so they come second nature to me. But there's tons of things in that I don't know. So the way I view it is, if you don't start, if you don't take that first step, you're never going to. That takes courage. Once you get over that first step, and that's the thing that really needs a lot of mental strength, then the rest is relatively easy, because it can keep you up at night for all the time, but there's always an answer out there, Yeah. And a wise man once said, the best way to get something is to ask for it. So if I'm going to start a business selling yachts, for example, I could go, it sounds great, I love the water, I love boating, I love yachts, let's just do it. Let's start with a name. We're going to call it markphilpottyachting.com.
And sounds good to me, mate.
Yeah,
sounds good.
And we register the URL and we host it somewhere and we work on some graphics. Don't know how to do graphics? Guess what? You can jump on Fiverr, and for $100 you got 3 options to choose from for a graphic. And that's how you really build it out. To be honest, it's simple, but it's complex at the same time.
Yeah.
But all the things you need are out there. You just got to. What you've got to get good at doing is finding what you need.
That's a great advice, and I'd like to throw something else in there too that I think stops people taking those big first steps, and that is what other people think. Stop thinking what other people are going to think about it. It's your idea. Go and do it, and the right people. And I've watched this in one of your videos, Mike, just to show that I've been checking you out, mate. You will attract the right things into your life, and you will attract the right connections that take you to the next level that you want to do. So if you're really truly passionate about something and you put yourself out there with the courage that Mike's talking about, then you will attract the right people to your life. Agree with that, Mike?
Oh, 100%, 100%. There is no doubt. I've experienced it time and time and time again in many ways in life. And, there's a great line that, you can be anything in this world you want. Well, I sort of don't agree with that. I think no one can be anything, but you know what you can be? You can be everything that you are. And that's what people are afraid of tapping into, is the gold that's inside them. And when you align that with what you're up, with what you want to do and your purpose, everything you need will come to you. You just got to go and find it.
Yeah, I like that. And a lot of people also get hung up on this notion that, someone's copied my idea or they're doing the same as me or whatever. The fact is, no one ever does the same as you, because you are you and you're the only one of you in the world, right? So
that's right.
You've got the way of thinking about it. You've got the way of doing it that's unique to everybody else. So go out there and do what you do best and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I found is the really successful people that are creative and have done something amazing in business or are great public speakers or authors or whatever, they are the most gracious, humble people that actually like someone else to come and say, that idea is brilliant, I'm just going to do it my way. They love that. The really successful people love it. And as far as like worrying about what people are going to think, and particularly family, like I can tell you now, the only way to succeed is not care about what your family think. Still love them. You still have empathy and trust and all that with them, and you respect them, but you've got to be prepared to say, I don't care what anyone thinks, only what I'm going to do.
Not many people in your household would have realised that you were going to have a basketball team in New Zealand 5 years ago, would they?
No, my dad was an accountant for 50 years. He would have just, he would have been freaking out. What are you doing that for? But you're right. No one would have seen it coming. And, it was that whole thing just came about from a coffee one Sunday morning with the ex-premier of Tasmania. He said, why don't we start a basketball team in Tasmania? Never even knew I was going to that coffee for that reason. So,
incredible stuff.
Now hopefully we will have the best sporting brand in New Zealand. Mark my words.
Okay, well, you're leading me into my next set of questioning, because that's what I'm going to ask you for is 5-year prediction. Where is your life going to be? And I'm talking about literally, where are you going to be based and what are you going to be involved in 5 years from now, Mike Sutton?
Look, it's a great question, and I've recently been. I just went away on a little getaway with a mate who's got a travel business and has been really struggling because obviously there's nothing they can do. So we went on a little bit of an R&R and a deep thinking session, and we were having this conversation about not so much where will I be in 5 years, but who do I want to be in 5 years. So for me, I've kind of flipped it on its head a little bit. Not what do I want, not what businesses am I going to have, not how much money am I going to have in the bank. Who do I want to be, right? So for me, I'm at the point of going through that, and I think, definitely a massive part of that is growing the Auckland Husky brand into a huge going concern in New Zealand. We've got big plans there with connections into community. We want to build our own stadium or training base in that time. We want to be, have programs all over New Zealand for kids to come through. Not just on basketball, but on personal development. We've got a great partnership in the Life Changer Foundation that we've just brought over there on that. The Miyagi Live, we really believe it's going to be tough because everyone will be trying to do what we're doing, but we really believe we've got something special in a global platform and are going to be pulling out all stops to make that happen. So I think, I can definitely see myself spending a lot of time in Auckland, particularly down at the waterfront, and whether it's in my new apartment down there or whether it's on my yacht, or cruiser, we'll see. It doesn't really matter in the physical asset side of it, but I think for me, just seeing all that grow and hopefully having a positive impact on both the sporting business and community landscape in the beautiful Auckland will be amazing. Yeah. And then, of course, the same in my in my regional area where I live. I run the soccer club with 6 or 7 other great people, and we really want to see that. There's been a lot of youth suicides in our area. We really want to see that community grow, and in that 5 years look back and go, look, wow, what a positive impact we've had. So
I applaud you for that, because you've crossed a lot of boundaries there in terms of looking at personal growth as being an ambition that's at the forefront over financial growth and all the rest of it. And I think there's a lot of lessons for a lot of people to be learnt about there. It's about doing your passion to the best of your ability, but also giving back and making a difference wherever you can as well, serving others and making the world a better place. That's basically what you've been talking about. I'm really keen to hear the answer to this question, Mike. What's the best piece of life advice you've ever received from anybody?
Best piece of life advice would be, if you're going to help deliver a calf, don't leave your watch on.
I won't even ask for the visual graphic associated with that, but I get it.
The hard way.
I get it in a nutshell. Yeah.
The best piece of life advice would be, everything you have is inside you already. That's what I've been taught and what I've learnt. And it doesn't come from external resources. And the sooner you can come to grips with your self-awareness and leverage what you're really here for and what your real skills and talents are, the quicker you'll be on the path to abundance and joy. That's what I've learned.
Wow, brilliant. That's where I want to end the show today, because I couldn't have gone out on a better note than that, Mike. So thank you very, very much. Listen, I'd love to have you back sometime in the future, because I love what you're doing. I love where you're going with all this. So I'm sure that there's many listeners and watchers, viewers today who are going to want to find out what happens to Mike Sutton, what happened to the basketball team. Well, we're going to keep in touch, and who knows, I might be over there interviewing Jacinda Ardern or Steve Hansen on my show, and I'd love to come and watch one of your games and have a beer with you at one of those Auckland waterfront pubs as well, Mike.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. My pleasure anytime. And we will definitely see you courtside to come partake of the mighty Auckland Huskies.
Excellent. Well, have a great day. Have a great weekend down there in Victoria. And thanks again for coming on the show today, Mike.
My pleasure, Mark. Thanks, mate. Keep at it.